strange. Life is so strange. Life is so strange.
You know, fathers is the foundation of the family. And one of the things that we have been struggling with is, as Black men, is not having that role model. Uh, but there is a blueprint that is already provided for us. And I always use the model of God the Father, who thought about us as men to have that same name. So the importance of that name, Father, you know, Father is the one who gives that child his identity. And we have a lot of young men that's missing identities because of a lack of a father. And because of that, we see many of the social ills that we struggle with in our communities. As you said, being angry. I was an angry young man as well. And a lot of times we see a lot of these young men angry because there is no father. And so because they don't know who they are and they don't know their identity because the father didn't give them that identity, then the streets give them that identity and they begin to tell them who they are and they take on that shape and form. So one is a father has to be able to be in the first consistent, he needs to be present and he needs to be engaged in his children's life in order to, because the whole family is relying on that piece of the father. I'm not saying the mother is not important, but I'm saying that foundation, when you talk about a foundation, you speak of a house, you know, a house is no good if the foundation is no good. If there's a crack in the foundation, then, you know, they will condemn the house. And we have a lot of broken foundations in our communities. And you'll see it with our young men because of a lack of a father. You know, fathers got to be able. And another point is, as you spoke about the young lady that's on here, you know, um, men need to be engaged with women and the mothers, and they have to be able to learn how to communicate with them, and they need to be able to work together. And that's because most of the time the women are the gatekeepers. And if you're not able to speak and communicate to the mother, a lot of times she can stop you from seeing that kid. And that causes a division within the family. So, you know, it's even if we're not with them or we have issues with them, we have to learn how to communicate with that, whoever that other partner is, so that we can co-parent. Because uh, if we don't, then the house is divided. And if the house is divided, it won't stand. And we see that. And I'll leave with this, you know, Blankenhood or Blankenship said, it's Dr. Blankenship, he said, the greatest trend of our generation today is fatherlessness. And it's not just in the United States, it's everywhere in this country. Fatherlessness is not a geographical issue, it's not a issue based on uh, race, it's a human issue. It's a public safety issue. It's a public health issue. And if we don't address it, we're going to see more and more of our young men incarcerated and dead, our lack of education, our own drugs, or, you know, I can go on and on and on, even with the young ladies with their identity and human trafficking. You can go back and I guarantee you that that father was missing their life and they didn't know their father, they didn't have a relationship with their fathers. And because of that, somebody else began to tell them they loved them because that same love they've been trying to get from their fathers. So this fatherhood, it goes straight across the board in many areas. I mean, it goes deep. And I believe that if we get the fatherhood piece fixed, we can get 90% of our social ills in our communities fixed. You know, it's a major component to our men. And it's the greatest responsibility for any male, whether you're a father or not. You were created to be a father. It's in your DNA, fatherhood. And so if you don't have any kids, you can adopt a kid. And when I say adopt a kid, you can take on the father role, not saying you have to be their father, but be that male role model, because these young men are hungry for that male model image. They're hungry for somebody to show them what it means to be a man, because there's a male and there's a man. There's a parent and a father, and the difference between is just because you're a parent or just because you're a father doesn't necessarily mean you're a parent. A father can just have the baby, but a parent is the one who's engaged with that baby and that child, who's pouring into them, disciplining, giving them structure, giving them life skills, giving them love and affection, leading them, guiding them, keeping them accountable. Those things, that's what a father does. A parent can just be a sperm donor and have the baby and disappear. And that's what we have. We have a lot of sperm donors. So that's. I hope I answered your question. But because, like you said, because of slavery and we were at that time 400 years ago, we could create and produce a baby, but we weren't able to raise that baby. We weren't able to discipline that baby. And then when all the slavery and everything was over, then they told us to be a father. So father is something that we have to learn. We have to be equipped. And so, programs like Village Connect, Man to Man, we try to help men, young men, I mean, older men. If you're a father, you're a father. So we have to give them those skills. But the three things, just to cut through the chase, the three things that would make a good father is: one, he needs to be present. Two, he needs to be consistent. And three, he needs to be engaged with the mother. If he can do those three, and they're not hard things to do, he needs to be committed, consistent, and he needs to be engaged with that mother. Hey, because kids, all they want you to do is be engaged. They just want, man, I don't care if you're a girl or boy, you want to be in the presence of your father. You want to hear your father root you on, tell you he loves you, he cares about you. And so you may not have the best parenting skills, but if you can do those three things, I guarantee you're on your way. There's no real, I mean, children. I got three kids, man. They're all different. So, I can't do for my oldest daughter what I do for my youngest daughter, or I can't do for my son. Each one of them I have to do differently. And that's based on a relationship that I have with each one of them.
Honor and privilege. I saw five, and I downloaded five thoughts. Okay, so the first one is first to be sure that they have the proper definition of what a man is. I think that's the first step to make sure that my definition of a man is a proper definition. Number two is to concentrate and build on what's strong with them and not get lost through our classical conditioning of what is wrong with them. So to switch up to what's strong with me versus what's wrong with me. Number three is to realize that sometimes you may have to back up to move forward. And I think that's very common for a lot of our young men to think it's just put it in drive and go. And like you said earlier, loved one, is breathe. You know what I'm saying? Slow down and breathe. And so number four is to network with other men who lead by example. Because if I change a network, I can change a network. And so I think that network of examples and village leaders, there's I belong to something inside them walls, and we follow a lot of African proverbs that people say about the village. But there's another one along with that same chapter that says if the village does not embrace the child will burn the village down to feel its warmth. And so I think as the village elders, whether they be through community-based, faith-based, father programs like my loved one Stewart, the work you guys do here, my sister Pamela, who reaches out through other channels and stuff like that, to take on examples and realize that it's okay to take help, because help ain't because I'm weak. It's to help me stay strong, help me, continue moving in strength. So network with men / women who lead by example. The fifth one is to stand courageous in all their endeavors to do what is right, even when it's not popular. Because our community has decided through some dark channels that they don't even know exist, half of our young loved ones, that the proper way to deal with issues that will come up in all manhood in any part of the world, in any part of the country. Manhood is faced with challenges. These are the things to make Boys to Men, I think, is a new addition, and different songs that challenge, and how some cultures have the rite of passage. Through that rite of passage is challenges that, courage is nothing without fear. So some of our men think that fear or violence is respect. They think the rites of passage has been forked in the road, bifurcated into various different methodologies, that I think that once they learn how to stand courageous in those endeavors and do what's right with the preceding 4 steps, that if a good example, and another man said, no, through that, I want you to breathe. I want you to think. I don't want you to argue. I want you to discuss content instead of emotion. I want, and so with those deliveries, I think then that they can stand and do what's right, even though when it's not popular. And so those are just 5 thoughts that I penned for this discussion.
Thank you, brother. I do have a question with you, because you do have time remaining, and I'd like to glean as much as I can from you, brother. I'm gonna be stingy.
Okay.
While we got you here, quite often in Village Connect, one of the big things we talk about is our humanity, and how systematically and through the conditioning of the structure of our communities, it's taken away from us, or we're taught not to acknowledge it.
Right.
What are 2 or 3 things that you do in your work to help brothers and sisters see their humanity?
Well, one of the things that I believe, and this was embedded in with me from my father, I was blessed. So one of the things I do is, as I hand down gifts that, like Stuart mentioned something, and all of us know a lot of the fathers that are missing, in action, missing in action. I got Latino loved ones who got a dad at home, but he missing in action because he working 20 hours a week. A day, you know what I'm saying? So MIA don't mean, and saying missing in action means to me that your behavior, you're not showing up, like loved one Stu said, you ain't consistent. So, you might be at the house, but you still MIA, right? So with that, I give gifts that, like my father gave to me. I'm passing down stuff that I know was a strength that embraced me through some times when I wasn't focused. So I hand those gifts to other ones to share, because I know they're great gifts. You understand? So I'm blessed to, first of all, build a relationship, no judgment, you know what I'm saying? And then to share with them, guess what, loved one, here's some stuff you didn't know. And just slow dance. What I've learned is that when we have, these programs, and we have to be careful because they systematically, I got to watch my language. So it's going to take, because I'll get on the microphone and have the FCC shut this stuff down. So I'm thinking, slow down and breathe. Thank you for that, because we also are systematic in these programs to spin cycle. You got 30 days to get this boy right. You got this, so then we throw up on them. We throw up all this love, and we regurgitate it on their helmets, and then they can't take it all. They feel the relationship, they feel the authenticity, but then we got to go, because guess what? It was a pilot program, or the contract ended, and all of this other stuff. So we systematically getting pushed into some buckets too of that are unfortunate for our community. So what I start off doing is a slow dance and an embrace. And one of the most important things I do is tell them, my parents are gone. Their phone number, you guys know this. Everybody on this line know what I'm about to do. 569-8589. That was when Oakland's area code was 415. My parents' number was that number from the time we moved from Sobrani Park to the 60s. I tell them my number is 510-301-3589. It's been that way since I had a cell phone. It's going to be that way till I drop dead. When you lose touch with probation, when you lose touch with parole, don't lose touch with me. I'm here. I ain't going nowhere. I'll be here for you. You know what I'm saying? So building a relationship, maintaining that relationship, and always giving them avenues in that relationship with me, and helping them through the challenges and the victories they may face.
Wow. Wow.
You know, I believe in slow dance and grassroots movements. You know, I know a little bit about the art of war, the little revolutionaries of bushes, because the machine has to move all these big tools through for the war. You know, if we keep piecemealing and hitting them here with some love, and we get our little villages back in line, you understand, which is a part of what they don't want. I think that we can win. You know, sometimes, you know, unfortunately, we lose little steps along the way, but I believe it's people like us and then the inherent ancestry that's tied into us that, you know, eventually the sun gonna rise. We just have to teach some of our people, quit being the shadow of your own light. You understand what I'm saying? Because, and I think that the systemic part of it is, I don't know, and I don't want to give up, but that's the part I'm afraid of, because I'll close out with this. I believe in this and was raised under this creed and this embrace. It says, what's behind me, I will respect it. Let me start again. What's behind me, I will protect it. What's beside me, I will respect it. What's in front of me, I will annihilate it. That's the creed of the warrior. Now the Shuja. Now what happens is that what's behind me is those who are weaker than us, the vessels. No matter if they're weaker in mind, spirit, body, or whatever, they don't have the strength, the knowledge to breathe. Who's beside me is my comrades, Gary. You know what I'm saying? Stuart, Jeremy, all the comrades. I respect them. They're on the side of me. I don't have to look left and right. We all warriors. What's in front of us is that systematic racism, the overindulgent us in these populations. So I think if we keep moving in that force, we'll slow dance ourselves back into some light.
Okay, so thank you so much just for the invitation. I appreciate it so much just being on here. But I do want to say one thing right before I get started, and that is that you guys having me to come behind Kevin Grant, that's like going outside and watering your lawn after a big thunderstorm. It's just not fair to me. But anyway, on the other side of that, I want to say to Stuart, you read my book. You don't have to tell him you read my book. I know you did, because of the things that you were saying. It's all in my book, okay? But I want to share something with you. And the side that I come on is literally the theological side, or the Christian side, or the Christo side, whichever one you want to call it. And that is that I have 3 sons, and all 3 of my sons are entrepreneurs, okay? We can talk about that later. They're doing well, never been in trouble and all that kind of stuff. Hooray. But the thing is that the Bible tells us that in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, it says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they get older, they shall not depart from it, right? And then my favorite scripture is actually in Romans chapter 1, verse number 16. It says, Paul says that I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ, okay, to tell us about the power. Verse 15 says that I am ready. But verse 14 says that I am a debtor. Now, the word debtor simply means that I am obligated. So before I can say that I'm ready, before I can say I'm not ashamed, I got to understand that I'm obligated. What are you talking about? I'm obligated. My sons are doing well, and that's great, but I'm obligated to everybody else's sons. I feel that obligation to them. I want to read you something, and I'll tell you what a young man wrote this to me. He said, "Thank you, Pastor. Your words helped me. You saved 5 black men's lives that you never met because you prayed for me." Young man wrote me this. He wrote me this letter because I prayed for him, took time out, because we are obligated to others. I think that what has to happen if we're going to be the fathers to have a home, a happy home, I've been married for 42 years to the same woman. Amen. But the other thing is that much this going through that, you got to be there. And I think that Stuart talked about it a lot. And what is happening to some of our loved ones, like Kevin Grant just said, is that they become frightened, man. And I'm not talking about what I heard. I'm talking about something that I experienced myself. I was afraid. My wife and I, when we first got married, when she got pregnant with my first son, I was afraid. And the reason why I was afraid is because all of the responsibility that came upon me. We had a 1-bedroom house apartment, and if you spin around, you touch the bathroom, the kitchen, the door, you touch everything when you're in this one room. That's what we had. And I got afraid, man, and I wanted to run. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to go back to Louisiana and never come back to California again. But what I did was I stayed, because nobody never gave me a book on what a man is like. Nobody never gave me a book saying that this is what a husband is like. Nobody never gave me, there wasn't no books about how to be a great father, man. And so I had to go from what I knew spiritually. You follow what I'm saying? And I had to go spiritually. And by going spiritually, I understood that much this. There's a difference between a daddy and a father. A daddy will make the baby, but a father will stay there and take care of the baby that he has. Yeah, okay. And one of the things that I said, if you're going to be a good father, if you're going to have a great home, the steps that we need to take, we got to encourage our brothers that you don't be afraid, man. You just got to be there. You just got to stay there, whether they staying in the house with you or not. You got to stay there and make sure that you're there for your children, because you're the one that made them. So that comes with responsibility. And the next thing that we have to do is to spend quality and quantity time with them. When we talk about quality time, is that take our kids somewhere where we don't never been. You know what I mean? I used to take my kids to San Francisco, didn't even have the money to do it, but I wanted them to see some different things rather than just seeing the same area going round and round and round again. I'll never forget, we went to a football game. And this is one of the things about quality and quantity time, is that we went to a football game, the Raiders game, and the Raiders played San Diego Chargers. Kevin Winslow had 5 touchdowns. The Raiders lost every game. They lost 52-0. It was a horrible game, but we got good seats, man. We was right in the front. I was sitting right next to MC Hammer, and my sons were sitting there. So what I did was I took them, I spent some quality time and quantity time and showing them that, son, if you do what is right, if you do what you need to do, you can come to these games when you feel like it. And I took them to the hills, up in the Oakland hills, little flatlands. But I took them and I showed them some stuff, spending that quality and quantity time. Then I showed them how that we got to feed the homeless, how we got to make sure that we take care of those that don't have. I came from welfare 17 years of my life. I know what it's like to open the refrigerator and there's nothing there. I know what it's like to open up the cupboards at night and wishing you had a sandwich. You follow what I'm saying? And so I wanted them to see it, both sides. And that had to do with quality and quantity time. And so I spend that time with them as well. The other thing, and I see them doing that with my grandkids, doing the same thing that they saw their fathers did, because his father got some courage, like Dad said, to stay there and just deal with it. The third thing is you got to do is make sure that you take authority, because the kids want a man, they want a father. If you're going to keep the house together, it's going to be right. The father have to take a stand. You can't let too many times we're letting the children run the house rather than we run the house. I'll never forget again. I tell stories because Jesus told them. He told parables. A story of my son wanted to go to the football game. He was 16 years old. Well, we got rules and regulations in my house. Everybody got to be back in at midnight. I don't care if you're 50 years old. If you're living in my house, you got to be back at midnight. And I told that to my sons. So my son went to the game, and I said, yes, you can go to the game. He went to the game. He came back. When he got back, it was like 11:59. I was standing downstairs in my chair waiting on him. And so I was upset because he got back. Like, he was upset with me because we got rules and I'm authority in my home. And so what happened was he went to bed. I woke him up about 3 o'clock and I told him, he said, what's wrong, Dad? What's wrong? I said, nothing is wrong, but let me share something with you. As long as you live in my house, you're not going to come in when you want to. You're not going to walk by me and not speak to me. One of the problems that I think is happening at home is that the male or the man don't have authority. They don't have an authority in the home. They let them kids do what the heck they want to do. You follow what I'm saying?
About 30
if we
seconds,
keep on
Pastor
doing that,
Barnes.
we're never going to raise them right. I'm seeing the fruits. Huh?
About 30 seconds, brother. Please wrap up.
Okay. Well, I just get excited talking about it.
It's all good.
That's all. I just get excited talking about it because it's not something that I'm talking about. I said before, I got 3 sons. All 3 of them are entrepreneurs, man. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to have done something right in order for that to happen. I'm not saying that this is the only way, but I am saying this is one way. I think what the other brothers are doing are great. And I think that if you add all of these things together, I went to the organization, I wanted to be a part of it, to share with them some things, how to raise sons, but they rejected it. And the reason they rejected it is because it was not the status quo. You follow what I'm saying? But I'll go anywhere and tell anybody that I'm not ashamed of the Lord Jesus Christ, because if it had not been for that, we wouldn't be where we are right now with my sons. I'm just saying it's just something to add to it.
I feel it's needed. I feel more people need to hear the outcomes of these conversations, because it's not foreign, it's nothing new. We're all similarly going through some of the same things. We just need to go about doing them. And so tonight I heard concerned, responsible men, fathers, husbands, just men talking and trying to get it right, trying to figure it out, trying to get to that identity. Because once we know who we are, we know where we're going. And I felt, as a woman, being the only woman on the line, I thought at first it would be awkward, but it felt honoring. I felt listened to. I felt seen, and I mean seen from the neck up, my head, what I was saying, not what I look like. And that was very important. That was very encouraging. That was very trusting. I felt heard. I felt you were listening. You wanted to know my antidote. And I think that's the whole key to any and all of most of our problems is communication. If we talk and we want that desire to work it out, it can be worked out. That's where that faith and hope comes in. And we really need to use it because we have our power and we're not using it as men and women. But for me, it was very, it was inviting. And also, I feel that whatever the issues are socially, relationship wise, worldwide, if we come together and talk about them, we can work out anything. I'm just so full right now. So much. I have about 4 pages of scribbled notes here. So there was a lot of, I think, sincerity on the line. I heard that tonight. I heard that men speaking from their heart, which I usually don't hear a lot. I usually hear men in power positions and modes. And tonight, I think you were not vulnerable, but you were open and encouraging and warmth and that love and the empathy that we need as both males and females, to hear one another and have conversation with understanding, because we can have a lot of conversation and it could be just a bunch of stuff, but to hear it and to put it in our hearts and our heads and be able to work it out and come up with a plan and a process. I feel this is the first step and we're on the right road.
Life is so strange.